And that is what we learned in 2021. What I learned is that late round rookie running backs matter in Dynasty. I'm going to give you 3 examples right now. The first one is Elijah Mitchell. Was extremely productive, and had he not missed time, he would have ran for well over 1,000 yards already. Missed a couple games early on in the season. He wasn't playing as much. Khalil Herbert was extremely relevant for a few games, and I do think that he actually becomes maybe a bigger part of that offense next year. Hopefully they get a competent head coach. Another guy, Jared Patterson, we're talking like a 5th round rookie draft pick, might have been a UDFA in your leagues, but look at last week. Against Philadelphia, 12 carries, 57 yards, and 1 touchdown. He had 5 catches for 41 yards. So this is a guy that there's a possibility you pulled him off your taxi squad. If you had shallow benches, maybe you even plucked him off the waiver wire. Could have plucked him off the wire in a redraft league as well. That's good production right there. So I understand 100% that you're going to hear people preaching draft capital matters, landing spot matters, and it absolutely does. But you need to know who these guys are before you plug them into your lineup. If you didn't know who Khalil Herbert was and you pick Zach Pascal up instead, you're probably really pissed off at yourself for doing that. I can guarantee it. If at that point in time you didn't pick up Elijah Mitchell, but you thought maybe Savon Ahmed would be doing something in Miami, you were going to be regretting it. So make sure you stay tuned, watch those rookie running backs, and we'll make sure that you know what's up. So, Nate, let's move on to you. And I see what you got written down here. I'm a little curious. So please explain.
Yeah. So I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I saw it on Twitter earlier. I think about like 40-something quarterbacks started a game this year. Probably even more than that. It might be 50, actually. I mean, there was a lot of quarterback injuries this year. We had a lot of quarterbacks playing. And, part of that's COVID. But I think we're just seeing a vast variety of quarterback performances. And not that many teams anymore really have their franchise quarterback. So what I learned this year is, and I used to go into every Superflex draft, like I got to get 3 good starters and then maybe a 4th, like high-level backup, and I want to lean on that quarterback depth because they score the most points, and I have a Superflex spot so I can play 2. And as the season went on, there's so many quarterbacks I could have picked up off waivers, and so many quarterbacks I did pick off waivers. I won a round of my playoffs with Josh Johnson and Nick Foles.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
I mean, I won a playoff game with those guys. And, I don't think at this point, and on the other side, I mean, I got Jared Goff. Jared Goff's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but there's a couple games Jared Goff gives me like 2, 5, 6 points. And I mean, we see some other players play terribly, and then we have some guys that, like Joe Burrow goes off for like 40 points. I think we're just seeing where, if you have 3 or 4 quarterbacks, I think you're just wasting your time with that, like in your startup draft. You might as well be grabbing some running backs or some wide receivers that would go around that same spot with the high value of quarterbacks. Because once you have 2 quarterbacks that are good, you don't need any more. Because if you have a bye week, you throw in a high level flex there, or you pick up someone off waiver wires, because as we saw this year, there's tons of quarterbacks. And then, if you get an injury, you just, got to spend all your fab on that backup, or, trade. You can trade for quarterbacks pretty easily in Superflex leagues, I think, these days. I found that in some of the leagues where either I had 3 or 4 quarterbacks or someone else, I mean, there's one league I'm in that, like, this one guy has like Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, and another good starting quarterback. He had 4 good starting quarterbacks. He couldn't trade them. No one would take him. No one was going to pay the premium. So he was stuck with 2 good quarterbacks sitting on his bench that entire season.
Yeah.
And I just don't think the value of depth is there anymore. I think it's very important to have 2 good quarterbacks, because as we saw this year, if you don't have, the top consistent guys, it gets rough. It gets rough at quarterback because we're seeing guys just fail miserably. So I think there's, getting your starter and, a high level 2, if that's what your strategy is important. But I don't think the depth of the quarterback position is as valuable as I think we thought it was over the past season or two.
Yeah. I like that. It's one of those things where I know, just to add on this, you got a guy who's like, I'm going to hoard these quarterbacks and get a ransom for them. And you know what? The rest of the league goes, you are. You're not.
It happens all the time like that.
Because then there's a guy that's like, I'll start Josh Johnson and Nick Foles and win a playoff game.
Yeah. I mean, I started Trevor Siemian for like 6 times this year.
I started Jake Fromm once.
Ew.
I had Tyler Huntley everywhere because I like Tyler Huntley a lot coming out of Utah.
Yeah, and that's
so I had Tyler Huntley like on half of my taxi squads at least.
And that's good.
And when Lamar Jackson got hurt, I immediately spent a ton of fab on Tyler Huntley because I love Tyler Huntley. Tyler Huntley scored me a bunch of points.
Yeah. All right. So Nate's not so worried about quarterback depth anymore. And that some people might think that's hot takey, but I actually don't hate it at all. Chev, what do you got for us? What did you learn from this past season?
I learned I am no longer going after those big wide receivers, those tall 50-50 ball wide receivers. I'm done. I can't do it no more. DK, Cortland Sutton. I mean, they're great if they're scoring touchdowns. It's amazing. It's fun. But if they're not making those big plays, you're looking at 5 points. If their quarterback goes down, you're looking at maybe less than that. You're looking at the targets going down. But if you have those wide receivers that are target hogs and they play short to the line and they get those receptions, those guys aren't going away. Those guys are going to continue to get the football. And I don't have a lot of Cortland Sutton. I traded him away. I have some DK. I have some bigger wide receivers. But I'm learning from that, and I'm learning from other people's mistakes going forward because I see how much success these smaller wide receivers that are getting these targets are, how much value they bring into fantasy. If you have them on your team, they're almost as valuable as a high-end running back 1. I mean, it's the same thing. 1 point per reception, boys and girls. It don't matter if they score a touchdown or not. You're probably looking at 15 to 18 points. So I'm sticking with those smaller wide receivers that are target hogs for the offense, and I'm staying away from all those big body wide receivers coming into the NFL.
So Chev, does that mean that are you going to pick Garrett Wilson over Treylon Burks?
Boys, I kind of fell in love like I did with Justin Jefferson watching my guy Garrett Wilson. And, I do have the first pick in our Dynasty Rewind draft, I believe. So, Mike, you might get some Burke action. We'll see. I'm
completely fine with Treylon Burks is my consolation prize. Completely fine with that as well. So, Chev, I like it. I can't say I disagree with it. Honestly, it's another good philosophy to apply. I understand people see these big athletic specimens like this guy's going to smash. And look, DK falling off a little bit this year. Seattle has also not looked like its normal self. So, we'll see what happens with him next year. And Phil, I guess you're up next. What do you have? What did you learn from 2021? What?
I've learned that just don't trade the trade. And there's some people that can just send you some trades and then just be like, you know what, I'll do it. And I got so happy this year. I'll just be completely transparent. Tyson Williams, I loved the way he played. And I gave up a 2nd-round pick for him. And then the next week he was inactive. And I should have just listened to Harbaugh saying that he's not going to play. And I was like, there's no way possible that he's not going to play. And then, boom, you get freaking Le'Veon Bell. You get Latavius Murray. You get Devontae Freeman. And then, boom, he's gone.
I gave up the 201 for Tyson Williams. And I knew it was the 201 because it was by far the worst team. And I was like, you know what? The 201's worth Tyson because it's going to be the bell cow.
Exactly. And he should have been. But we also got to listen. But you got to listen to what the coach is saying. But, we're smarter than everybody else. We're like, whatever. We'll just give him. You could take my money here. He's good. If somebody sends you a trade, even if it's something that you might like, sit on it, think about it for a little bit. Just don't like, hey, this is a good trade. I'm going to go for it. Evaluate it. It could be good. It could be bad. But, sometimes Mike say you always don't have to win a trade. Just know what type of value that you might have, especially if you're rebuilding, and move forward for the next year. I'm not trying to make fun of you because I know I always talk about your son's a dynasty team, but you have value. Your team, your whole team might not be good, but you have some players on your team that have really good value because we scouted good and you drafted good, and I always give you props on that. But you're just a couple years away.
Yeah,
but after a couple trades from the draft pick that you have, you can go from pretender to a contender. Like all I want to say, just don't trade the trade because sometimes, like we said, it's a good trade, and sometimes it just could be just a horrible trade. And you look back and you say, "What the F was I thinking?"
Couple just real quick hits here. It's okay to leave a league if you're not having fun. Remember, pay your league fees. If commissioners like me, make sure you collect your league fees.
Goofball.
You do not have to accept any trade you don't want. And the most important thing to remember, and this is not just from 2021, but this is always, the NFL does not care about your fantasy team. We cannot manifest the NFL to do what we want. It is up to us to react to what the NFL is doing and adjust properly.